Welcome into the Fan Speak Network. I am your host, Justin Bruni. Joining me, as always, is my co-host and partner, Mr. Andrew, the TD King, Rob. Good evening, sir. How are we doing? How are we feeling?
Yes, sir. Feeling good, buddy. Feeling good. I feel much better once we get BBM released and all these other nice contests. Big board's fine. Big board is fine.
It's getting
It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. But here we are talking some bounce back candidates. Can't see behind me, but Bruni with the nice thumbnail here, the nice background, got us on the old Celtic pride, and Travis Kelce being held captive currently. Bruni,
Didn't bounce back.
Let's say one of us may have him as a bounce back candidate. Stay tuned.
Didn't bounce back. Resurrect production or else. I mean, we were talking about this before the show started. It's just like, imagine if there was one player that was so concentrated in like the BBM finals or even big board finals. I don't know how you'd be able to look at that we don't have BBM DB for the big board.
Yeah, do better.
And then that player gets kidnapped. What the? That would be amazing. I mean, not amazing for that said player, but seems like something that would happen for a best ball degenerate for sure. Like, well, I won, but we still haven't seen Travis Kelce since the kidnapping. No kink shame, I guess. No kink shame. There's no shame thrown around here, unless I draft 4 tight ends. If we do the bonus draft,
shame.
Yeah. Let's smash the like button. As a matter of fact, we get to 20 likes by the end of the conversation. Andrew, you good to do a live draft?
Sure. If we get to 20, I did likes. Have a.
They hit it last week. Last week it was 15. We'll bump it up to 20.
Okay, gotta get there.
Let's share the video. If you want to get a live draft going, maybe you just tell some folks, hey, get up in here, smash the like button, follow the Fan Speak Network, inching closer to 500 subs, on the road to 1,000. Got a $500 giveaway at 500 subs, and we're giving away the cocktail playbook also at 500 subs. So help us move that number, push forward to the 1,000 subs. We have a big celebration for you once we clip the 500 here, and I believe we're about 41 away. So let's get a couple of subs here through this first half of the show, and we'll jump into that live draft. I'm calling ice. They won't be able to do anything. I have all the proper documentation. I am an American. I have the free civil right to draft as many tight ends as I want. I might just get a bald eagle with a 4 TE on the center of it just because of that, and just get that tattooed maybe on my shoulder, Mike Rob. All right. This is America. I can draft as many tight ends as I like. That's unreal. Yes. Wrong department. You might want to call the IRS, try to audit me. Problem is they don't have anybody left.
Oh boy. Are we back in it again? Oh Jesus, Bruni.
Did you freeze?
No, it's you, man. I went back and watched our last show. It's definitely you, brother.
You froze. Not me. No, it was definitely you.
Guy. Before we get into it, let's just say hello to the chat. So Jamie checking in. Appreciate you, Jamie. Stephen WC23, obviously a big fan of the old 23 number. What's up? As always, chat lord Mike Rob checking in. Jamie says, "Didn't you hate me? Didn't you hate on me last draft for taking 4 tight ends?" I always hate on it. I always hate on it.
Wasn't me. It was these guys.
Got that bootleg internet.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so perfect.
I haven't had any issues the past couple of days. I had some not great internet that previous weekend, so hopefully we get it going here tonight.
I do have us up on my other screen just watching, and I just saw you freeze, so it's definitely you, Brindog. Definitely you, brother.
All right. I'll try not to stay still.
Yeah, man. Let's get into it. Before we do, though, obviously got to talk about a little Deebo Samuel news.
Yep.
Heading on over via trade to my Washington Commanders for a 5th round pick, which I believe we picked up in the Marshawn Lattimore trade. Feels good. I was telling you, Bruni, that I would love to have T. Higgins long term. That would be a great signing for us. But on a 1 to 3 year stint, whatever they're going to keep Deebo for, I do like it. We didn't give up much for him. He's going to fit well into the offense. Obviously Cliff King there. He's going to have fun finding ways to get him the ball. But yeah, I mean, I like what Adam Peters did. He went and got a guy that he knew from San Francisco. He's going to be able to help Kingsbury kind of implement him into the offense a little bit here. So overall, I feel pretty good about it. And Debo has done pretty well against the Eagles in his career. So I do like that, knowing that we have to face them twice a year. It brings, physicality to it. Obviously, there was a bunch of highlight videos sharing on Twitter when he got traded to the Commanders, and I was watching a bunch of them, and I just forgot how physical Debo can be at times. So I like that. Like you need to bring that to the NFC East and the NFC, just in general. So yeah, man, feel good about it. Any thoughts on the old Debo trade there?
I would say it's a nice win, nice little bump for the Commanders, looking to be competitive in the division this year. Losing to the Eagles, obviously, I think it was a whole team loss. I don't think it was because they were a receiver short. They got punched around a little bit, but it definitely moves the needle for them. And like you said, as far as the compensation goes, pretty light, right? Like you don't feel too bad about that. Third or fourth round pick, maybe you're questioning the trade a little bit more. But it also looks like they still might be open to adding even another receiver, just because, he's a physical guy, sure, but not a big deep threat. And I think they might look to get somebody else to also, open up the field other than Terry McLaurin. But the way that Terry was playing last year, how efficient he was downfield, and bringing in a guy like Debo that can catch the ball very well in an intermediate and shorter passing route, I think that looks really good for the team offensive build. Now they got to go get some maulers. I think that's also a big difference, between them and the Eagles in that division is the offensive line is much, much better for the Eagles. They're more and better equipped in the trenches, we'll say. So I still think the Commanders have some work to do. This is a nice little piece to add on. Yeah, we're feeling pretty good. I think, going into the draft and going into free agency as well. If they could, is there another name that you'd like out there? You mentioned T. Higgins. Could you see them adding like T. Higgins into that mix with Terry, Debo, those running backs?
I do, if they really truly feel like they could sign Higgins to a nice long-term deal. I don't think they're going to go get him on a rental personally. So it really depends on what they want to go spend on T. Higgins. So, and I agree with you. I think they are going to add another piece, though. Now that they added Debo, I really do think that it comes via the draft. I think they want to go get some rookie to learn under these two. So I wouldn't hate that either. So it really just depends. But I do think that they will add one more piece in there. But I do think it's going to come probably a day 2 or 3, via the draft.
Any receivers you saw here at the combine that impressed you that you'd be happy to pair with McLaurin and Debo?
I mean, Felton, and I know I mentioned him last draft. He's a guy that's going pretty much absolutely free in these drafts. He did himself a few favors. I think he's risen up the board a little bit. So he would be interesting. A guy that they would not need to take a first round or second round pick on. I mean, nobody like kind of shocked me, I guess, per se. I do want to go back, and I didn't get to watch everything yet, but I do want to go back and watch some of that. But I don't really have anybody in mind now. If like Mbuka or somebody is there at 29 when they're up, I'm okay with them spending that first round pick on a guy like that. If not, then I agree with you. Like
I don't think they need to, and I don't think they will, just because of how deep this class is. I feel like they got to improve in the trenches, and I have no idea who's due up, offensive line value wise at pick 29 or to start round 2. But I think that is really where they need to get aggressive, potentially in free agency and or the draft, especially after what you just added to the offense. Like the offense looks really good. I mean, you still have Brian Robinson Jr., you still have Eckler. He had a 2-year plus deal. Adding Debo to Terry. We were talking, I think, in the fan speak chat about De'Ami Brown being a free agent, or is he restricted? Do you know?
I think he's available to move if he would like to, and he even said that at the end of the year that he realizes this is a business. So I think he kind of saw that the door's probably open for him to leave. I think that if he doesn't leave, he would be a decent piece as the third receiver on the team. But I could definitely see him leaving. And I did want to mention that now that they went and got Debo, this really makes me think that they're going to go all in on a Myles Garrett or somebody like that is going to shore up the D line for them a little bit. And maybe even try to get
Well, maybe that
like
means
a
moving
corner.
that pick 29 then.
Yeah, potentially. And like I said, I kind of am okay with them if they move that 29 pick to go do that. Like it's the
Mhm.
end of the first round.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not like they're
absolutely.
moving, pick 10, right? So I'm okay if they go do that
They'll
for
he'll
Terry.
cost more than just that pick for sure. Like there'll be other picks involved for absolutely. But yeah, no, I would like that. Or like I said, getting someone on the offensive side. But yeah, Miles Garrett's a mullet. That's going and getting it done for sure.
Yep. Speaking of Debo, do we want to get in to our conversation here?
Yeah, I mean, based off of the discussion here, like, is he going to progress for you, this year with the Commanders? Is he going to have more fantasy production than 2024, 2023? How does he really fall in line? I feel, as far as like the offensive, division of work, him and Terry should be fine. I think who I really worry about here is the running backs, because if they do implement Debo as a rusher, the Swiss Army knife that he can be, I think that definitely depletes opportunities for Eckler for sure. You would want to short his ADP, and honestly, potentially, I don't know about touchdown upside, but just overall rushing upside. I feel like it would also limit Brian Robinson Jr., because I think you have like literally a four-headed monster potentially in that backfield, throwing in Jaden Daniels in there and his rushing ability and just what you'll have to account for. I'm not saying like, Jaden Daniels is some mold of like Lamar Jackson, because he was far better of a passer in his rookie year than Lamar Jackson was. They were literally like taking Lamar out for Flacco to come in and make some throws, like some deep field throws, even when he was in his first year replacing Flacco. So he's much higher on the passing acumen level already, but the fact that he has that ability to, create plays just with his legs, him, Debo, those two running backs, like I said, B-Rob and Eckler, I think that creates a lot of problems for defensive coordinators and, that front seven. So I think that's really going to be like the meat and potatoes of that offense this year, is really playing, with some deceptive play calling with that rushing attack and adding Debo into it, with a rushing quarterback in Jaden. And then obviously everything that you can build off of his, shorter route tree, like I was talking about earlier, the intermediate, the shorter, passing routes, where Terry can hopefully still continue to break open the second level.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the running backs. They actually were very good on like short yardage stuff last year, and I
Mhm.
think that obviously that opens up because of what Daniels can do with his legs. You do have to
Right.
account for that, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the running backs. But as far as Debo is concerned, like he is my bounce back candidate for wide receiver.
Mhm.
He finished obviously last year as a wide receiver 44 and half point PPR. Current ADP is 72, which is wide receiver 39. So when I looked at his game log last year, when I was going through some of these guys, he only had 6 games of 10 points or more,
Mhm.
3 above 15, and only one of 20 plus. That's like not inspiring. But again, like where you're getting him right now, wide receiver 39, I definitely feel like he can finish much better than wide receiver 39. He's obviously, probably in a prove it year. I don't know what they're gonna do with this contract, but he's definitely in a prove it year in my eyes. He's gonna want to go out there, and it's a new offense, probably better offensive scheme for him now, and also obviously a much better QB at the helm. So I think that he comes out as a new guy, right? Like sometimes we see these guys go to teams and want to play a little different, want to play a little better because they are on a new team, want to prove themselves, and it's just the grass is greener sometimes on the other side. So I do think that this is going to help him a lot, and obviously I said I hit on a little bit, but Cliff Kingsbury is going to have a field day scheming up plays for Debo Samuel. I mean, we already saw what he likes to do behind the line of scrimmage. Now they got a guy that they can like let run the ball too. So I think we're going to see a lot of stuff behind the line for Debo, and short target stuff. I really like what Debo can do in this offense, and I think if anything, it hurts Terry's value a little bit. In best ball as far as terms of ADP, I think it's going to hurt him a little bit, and obviously, I would say buy the dip if he goes down. But
Yeah.
production wise, it's going to hurt slightly, just because obviously, he's never had a running mate like this. So I think it
Mhm.
does hurt Terry a little bit. But as far as Debo is concerned, wheels up, baby. It's going to be really nice to go get him still where he's at now. I think this will rise him up the board. Being in Washington now, so I would say go get him now before he rises up, because I do really think that this offensive scheme for him is going to fit him very nicely, and
Mhm.
they're going to like the physicality that he brings. So, yeah, he is my bounce back candidate at wide receiver 40, or I'm sorry, wide receiver 39 right now. If I had to put a number on it, I think he probably finishes right around somewhere between like wide receiver 21 and 26, somewhere in there. So like, probably a mid to late wide receiver too.
And what about Terry? Where do you think he finishes with Debo
I
now
think
in
he's
effect?
a fringe wide receiver one. I would say like somewhere in like the probably 11 to 16, somewhere in there. So I think it's still fine, but like where you're drafting him now, like you're definitely drafting him at his ceiling right now.
Yeah, and I think that Debo also solves another problem for best ball drafters in the fact that you should no longer be overpaying for Terry McLaurin early in the second round. You're seeing a lot of people do that. If you want to get the stack in the top five rounds, you're going to have to get Terry and Jaden in round 2 or 3 because they're both going at ADP in about round 3. So you just can't get both of them. And there are some drafters, Andrew did it a couple drafts ago, where he did exactly that. Hey, I'm going to go after this stack. I'm going to get it, but I'm going to have to pay up for it. I don't think that you need to do that anymore with the extension of Debo now being with the Commanders and another potential move potentially looming. So I think that you just don't, you know, you don't push yourself to make that move. You don't have to. By all means, you can do round 2 Terry, round 3 Jaden, and then go and even get more. You can go get Debo. You can go get one of the running backs. But I would tread against that strategy, and I would try to grab Jaden with one of the more value pieces like Debo. I think, because you and I are both under the assumption that Zach Ertz also comes back. I think
Yes.
that the presence of Debo also helps a player like him who had a really high touchdown percentage in 2024. I think you could actually replicate that now if the offense
It,
continues to grow or become wealthier in talent.
Yeah, and I agree with that aspect because I think it's going to open up the middle of the field for Ertz a little bit more. If Debo's, running a crossing route, like they're probably going to try to stick to Debo over Zach Ertz.
Right.
And Zach Ertz did a lot of damage over the middle last year, especially in the red zone. So if we get
Mhm.
some Debo like fake runs and
Well, just
the
no, not
linebacker
even that.
bites.
Give Debo 3 real runs, and then everything else after that's a misdirection. You know what I mean? Like you just give it to them a couple of times, and then now they have to account for it every time or every other time. So
Yeah.
I think, like I said, there's going to be a lot of chess play for that offense this year.
Yeah, and Jamie makes a good point. Debo's, older for a wide receiver, so he said he better hurry up and prove it so he gets his money. And again, I don't think that they sign him to like a massive long term deal that's going to pay a boatload of money. But I do think that he is going to prove it and get himself a little bit of cash next year. Stephen WC23 says I have several JD and Debo already, so that's it's nice
Nice.
to have already in the
Yeah, I
pocket.
like to already have that pocketed for sure. It is nice to be ahead of the market on a lot of those trends. So shout out to you. That's awesome.
Yep. Who do you
Uh,
got up for your wide receiver?
for wide receivers, I have, let's see, Cooper Kupp is my first guy up. He is at wide receiver 49, ADP of 92. That's coming off the board in round 8. Coming off a season where he only played 12 games, he recorded 11.7 fantasy points per game. He was wide receiver 40. The season prior, 2023, he was wide receiver 41, also played 12 games, 11 fantasy points per game again in 2023. But then the elite status, the years prior, you had, wide receiver 24 through 9 games in 2022. Bit of a trend there. Last 3 seasons, not playing over 13 games or more. But he did have 18 fantasy points per game in 2022. 2021, wide receiver 1, the elite of elite, Cooper Kupp, the version of him that we missed the most, played 17 games, full season, 21.5 fantasy points per game. Andrew, love the value here for Cooper Kupp, but I feel like he really has to have like the perfect landing spot for him to come anywhere close to sniffing, wide receiver 18. The age, the injuries, just the inability to play a full season. We're going on 3 years now where we haven't seen him play over, like I said, 12 games. I think that's a big issue. Are you buying or passing on his ADP? Again, it's very friendly. Round 8, wide receiver 49, coming off a bad season. When he plays, he looks, halfway decent. But again, even the last 2 seasons, down a huge clip from his elite status, quote unquote. And even the season from 3 seasons ago when he only played 9 games, he still finished as a wide receiver 2 at wide receiver 24. So I think that's commendable. What do you think's left in the tank for Cooper this year?
I guess it really depends on where he goes. Like, I don't know. In your mind, is there any way that he
give
stays?
me a good landing spot, just like in your mind. Like, is it the Chiefs? Like, is it the Lions? Is
I
it
mean,
the
it's always the
Cowboys?
Chiefs, but
But
yeah,
but is
it's
it,
always the
because
Chiefs.
we saw DeAndre Hopkins go there last year, and it was not all sunshine and rainbows. I'd argue that Hopkins actually looked like more of a threat with the Titans. He came over to the Chiefs and he looked completely enamored. Sure, scored touchdowns here and there, but the big playability, the downfield, shots, they just weren't there.
Yeah. I mean, I think he would be fun. Um, with the Bills, I don't really think that makes sense for him to go there, but that would be fun to see him go there. Man, yeah, that's a good.
So how about the Cowboys? A target rich environment, if you will, for a guy like
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp, because even with CD Lamb there, they don't have an established running back. We assume probably Rico Dowdle comes back, but maybe they grab a free agent, draft somebody, whatever. But a lot of targets to go around in a pass heavy offense. Would that move the needle for you? Like, could you put him in like that top 20 conversation?
Um, Man, 20, I don't know about that. Like, I think if you said, like, can he be a high end wide receiver 3, low end 4?
Mm-hmm.
Probably there, yeah. It would just really depend on like what they would do with Jake Ferguson. Because I think Cooper Kupp's value can be around the goal line, and that is also where I think Jake Ferguson's value comes with
Mm-hmm.
the Cowboys as well. So I think that would be tough there. I think it would be a good move for the Cowboys, but I think it would be tough value wise
Well,
for
all
Cooper
3
Kupp
guys would
there.
be red zone threats. CD Lamb is an
Yeah,
impeccable
like
red zone
so
threat.
they eat into each other, right? So I'm not sure like fantasy value wise if that's the
Mhm.
best thing for Cooper. I'm trying to
Well,
think like
I
where
still think,
else.
like, his value has been most, attached to his, reception totals, 67 catches last year, 59 the year before, 75, 145 the season that he was wide receiver 1. He did have, 16 receiving touchdowns that season, but he hasn't clipped more than 6 the last 3 seasons. So I
Mhm.
don't think it's really like his value is like, predominantly based on the touchdowns as much as it is on getting the targets, getting the catches, and being a volume receiver. I think really that's where you get his really good baseline production. My concern and why I think he might be an actual bust this year is that he goes somewhere and they try to do too much too soon with him. They try to, get him back to the old Cooper Kupp, and it's just not going to be there. And if he's not in that situation, because I think that's like the most ideal, like the situation where he goes and we're like, okay,
W-
we can be excited about this, like maybe the Cowboys
What
or
about
the
the
Lions.
Packers?
That would not do it for me. That would
No.
not do it for me. No. I mean, they're
Hmm.
going to run the ball a ton anyways. They're going to use Josh Jacobs. We're saying Marshawn Lloyd might be something this year. They probably drafted another running back. I don't know what we're saying. Yeah, they're a team that really likes to ground and pound the ball. I would
Yeah, I
want
mean,
somewhere where
I still think he's a good value at where he's going, and I'm currently looking at the ranking. So, like, do you like Cooper Kupp more than Darnell Mooney?
no, I would probably take Cooper Kupp, but like I would bet that the numbers don't suggest that. Like last year's production would say to take Darnell Mooney probably.
Yeah. What about your boy Michael Shipman?
Michael Pittman, he's a good conversation for bounce back, but he's just been so down that like I don't know. We
Like,
would
I mean,
really
there
need to know what they're doing at quarterback. You know,
he's
I
Kupp is going in between those guys right now. What about Bateman?
I would probably have Bateman ahead of that group.
Yeah. What about like a bounce back for Keon Coleman over Kupp?
It's not really a bounce back for Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman needs to break
Yeah, I
out.
guess. Yeah, you're right. He was a
Yeah,
rookie, so
he would need to
yeah,
break out, and then he would have to play poorly, and then he could bounce back.
yeah. I mean, like Rashid Shaheed was on fire before he got hurt. Like he's down there around Cooper Kupp as
Sure,
well.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I
So
think
like
that
it,
he was also in a breakout situation last year, but he was playing well enough to be like, "Hey, is he gonna be the same level of talent? Is
yeah,
he gonna
like
be as
so
good as he was last year?"
I think what it comes down to for me right now is I like some other guys around Cup right now. So
Mhm.
big board wise, probably won't take a lot of Cup. I think it's a good value, but I probably won't take a lot of them until he goes somewhere and then see what happens. But like right now, there's just other guys there that I like their situations better right now.
Mhm.
Still think a Cooper Cup a good pick though.
I think it's a very easy thing to talk yourself into. Cooper Cup at wide receiver 49 in round 8. I also wouldn't want to do like a hyper fragile RB build and then like have Cooper Cup at the top of my receiver board. I don't want that. And I feel like there are going to be some drafts where receiver gets really aggressive and then we're pissing yellow, kind of how it looks like on the bottom of the screen, to be perfectly honest. Uh, and he's going to move up a round or two. And that's what I don't want to do. Like I want to get him at value at his ADP after. I definitely don't want to be rushing or running to get Cooper Cup. I honestly
Yeah.
think, if you're doing some volume drafts, you're probably getting a mixed selection of the players that you named, Pittman, Shaheed, Mooney, Cup. Like you shouldn't be really locked into any of these guys at that ADP. You should be mixing it up. And Cooper Cup is obviously, again, based on previous production, what we've seen, what he can be healthy, he should be a value. But again, the availability the last 3 seasons should be very concerning. And I think that's really the biggest thing that's baked into his ADP is, we're looking for big, crazy results for week 17. Is he going to be there? And a guy that's again hasn't clipped over 12 games in the last 3 seasons, that should give you pause for concern.
Yep.
Who's your next guy up?
I don't have another wide receiver. So if you want to switch positions here,
We can stay with receiver. I have Stephon Diggs. He's at wide receiver 56, ADP 116. That's coming off the board in round 10. A little bit different than Cooper Cup because this last season was his first season in a very long time where he wasn't available. So wide receiver 67 in 2024, Stephon Diggs only played 8 games, 12.25 fantasy points per game. 2023, he was wide receiver 10. Very similar amount of fantasy points per game at 12.9, played full 17 games. The year prior, 2022, 16 games, 16.6 fantasy points per game, wide receiver 4, top 5 finish. 2021, wide receiver 7, full 17 games, 13.7 fantasy points per game. And then 2020, wide receiver 3, 16 games played, wide receiver 3, 16 and a half fantasy points per game. He looked pretty good last year with Houston. We've talked about him before. First off, do we think he's going back to Houston? And if not, are there any other glaring, opportunities that are staring at him other than, hey, why not go back to the Buffalo Bills? That worked out pretty well. Look at the stats from there. Obviously, probably not going to happen. Landing spots where he's going to be best profiled, and are you buying it? Like will he just come back to form on a full schedule? If he plays 14 games plus, are we getting the Stephon Diggs from last year or the elite years where he's getting 15, 16 fantasy points per game?
I think the elite years are behind him unless he goes somewhere that they're going to pass the ball a lot and he's the lead dog. I mean, all those years that you said that he was, awesome. What was that, 20 to 23 that you just mentioned? Like
Yeah.
he was the lead guy, right? Like then he goes to the Texans and yeah, I understand that like he got hurt and wasn't available,
Mhm.
but still wouldn't have been the lead guy, right? I don't think we ever see that again. But where you're drafting him right now, you don't really need that to happen. I do think
Mhm.
he stays with the Texans. And I think he can finish as a wide receiver 3. Wide receiver 2 upside weeks. I don't think we really ever see him like pan out to a wide receiver 1 finish, maybe once or twice throughout the year, in some odd
Mhm.
weeks. But again, like where you're drafting him right now, you don't really need that to happen. He's wide receiver 53, as you said. So yeah, I mean, he's going around the same guys as Cooper Cup is. Other guys I prefer, unless I'm stacking with CJ Stroud, and then I want to take the shot on Diggs. But yeah,
Mhm.
I do think he stays with the Texans.
I think he's an absolute buy at his ADP, and I would say he's a better candidate for a bounce back than Cooper Cup. I mean, he had 4 total touchdowns on 50 touches. That's pretty solid. If you double that up, 100, right around a healthy 100 touches, you should have 8 to 10 touchdowns. I think, again, on the right roster, it can work. And I do think that actually going back to Houston would be best for him. He, in my opinion, looked good in the offense. He had, 47 catches, almost 500 receiving yards in 8 games played. He was on pace for a pretty solid season. He would have finished with about 1,000 receiving yards and about 8 total touchdowns. I mean, it's not the years prior with Josh Allen, but and he was playing alongside a guy like Nico Collins and Tank Dell. In his last year with Allen, he had 1,183 receiving yards on 107 catches. So yeah, you're right. You probably weren't getting that. You were probably still getting a little bit of a level below that, which is still an amazing value at wide receiver 56 coming off the board in round 10, even a round or two after Cooper Kupp. So he, for me, is a buy over Cooper Kupp, is at least as far as the bounce back department, the bounce back comeback ability in 2025. Also a little bit younger, and like I said, like the clean bill of health has been there. Like that, the injury thing has not been a narrative for him. So I'm hoping that again he bounces kind of back from that. A lot of people are just, I feel, are making an assumption that he's just gonna get hurt again, and that's just not always the case.
Yep.
That's all we have for receivers. So if you want to pivot.
Yeah, let's pivot here. Where do you want to go position wise?
You lead the way.
All right, well, let's just go to the top of the pecking order here. Go to quarterback. So my guy is CJ Stroud. So CJ Stroud, current ADP 126, which is QB 17. He went 2 years ago, finishing as a top 10 quarterback, to last year barely making it into the top 20 at a quarterback 18. So right now you're drafting him pretty much where he finished. That was a pretty down year for CJ Stroud, right? I think there's good value in him right now at that ADP because you're kind of drafting him more towards what we saw of a floor play than a ceiling play. Slowick did not do CJ Stroud favors last year. Like, he just did not tend to what they had available to them, with the injuries that they had throughout the season. Obviously he lost Nico Collins for a little bit, lost Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell got hurt then. So he didn't, Slowick just wasn't really favorable for Stroud. Insert,
Robert
Nick
Woods
Alley.
wasn't saving the day either. Let's be fair.
This is true. New offensive coordinator who's a Sean McVay guy, should probably have a pretty quarterback friendly playbook here for CJ Stroud. I think, obviously Nico needs to stay healthy, and I think obviously, they're going to do everything they can to keep him on the field. So with a healthy Nico,
I think that once they add somebody at a receiver, you do probably see Stroud's value go up because Tank Dell, we know, is going to be out this year. Diggs is technically a free agent. I'm saying he's going to go back. But right now, you're looking at Nico, and I'm not sure if Bob Trees is still on the roster, but like Xavier Hutchinson, another
Mechie.
Who? John Mechie.
They have Mechie. Yeah, they have Mechie. Yep. I do agree with you, though. I think they draft somebody. So I think that will hopefully, and I think that they draft, probably one of like the top 15-ish wide receivers out there if possible. So I think that obviously will help. And I did put that here, unsure what receivers they will have, but probably add somebody. He only had one game over 20 fantasy points. I mean, again, like he just had such a down year that I can't see him only finishing as QB like 18 again. Well, so I think it's a much friendlier ADP than last year as well. You're getting him way later. So I really like a bounce back for CJ Stroud. We saw what he could do in his rookie season, and that was as a rookie, right? Like, I think, he knows the NFL now. He understands the speed that it's played at. And, for what he did as a rookie to have such a down year last year, I just can't see that happening again. I don't think he's going to finish like as a top 5 quarterback. I don't think we're getting like a Baker situation from last year where you got him so late and he finished as the top 5 guy. But I do think he finishes, towards the back end of the quarterback ranking. So I really like a bounce back for CJ Stroud. Very good quarterback, and he's mobile too, which is what I like in a guy that I'm drafting a little later. I want him to be able to use his legs if needed. And, with a better wide receiver carousel around him this year, albeit if they stay healthy, I really like CJ Stroud for a nice bounce back.
How do you think Joe Mixon plays into his potential progression in production this year? I mean, Joe Mixon came over, was an absolute unit for them, really, took on the identity of the offense and also scored a ton of touchdowns. Are you looking for him to also replicate his 2024 production in 2025? And does he, chew out, a larger percentage of the offense this year than he did last?
I think Mixon's going to be roughly about the same. I do think that he's still going to command a majority of the work around the
Mhm.
goal line and within like the 5 yard line. Like we saw that a lot last year for Mixon. Though what I am, thinking for CJ Stroud is that he's going to get a lot more touchdowns that come, further down the field. Like I think he's going to get, those 20 and 30-yard touchdown passes that we just didn't see a ton of last year. I think that that's where his values going to help him, get a little boosted up the board here, when it's all said and done. So I do think Mixon still is good. I just don't think that they're going to just solely rely on him in the, 5 to 10 yard line, because I do think they're
Mhm.
going to score touchdowns outside of that this year.
No, that's fair at that ADP. Hard to argue. We're gonna sit right there. We're gonna stay right around QB 17. My next guy up is Trevor Lawrence at QB 18, coming off the board ADP 128, round 11, was QB 27 in 2024. Significant amount of regression from QB 13 in 2023, and then QB 8 in 2022. He's played 10 games this past season, 16 games in 23, and 17 games in 2022. His fantasy points per game have gone down 2 points across the last season. He had 15 fantasy points per game last year. In each of the prior seasons, he averaged about 17 and a quarter, 17 and a half points per game. Biggest thing for me that I saw, from 2 years ago to last year was the reduction in overall turnovers. He had 21 total turnovers in 2023, 14 interceptions, 7 fumbles. And the year prior, he had 9 fumbles and 8 interceptions, totaling 17 total turnovers. And then the year prior, 2021, he had 17 and 5, 22 total turnovers. Last year, he only had 8. That was in 10 games played, but it was significantly less than the prior season. So he was at least protecting the ball a little bit more. Don't think that he was going to be on pace for like the 4,000 yards still. He probably would have still came short of that. The offense was just kind of stagnant at times. But Liam Cohen coming over, having, developed the rushing attack for the Buccaneers last year, completely turned it around. I think upping the baseline of the running offense definitely uplifts the passing game to a certain degree. He has Brian Thomas. It sounds like they're going to be in the market for a receiver as well, whether they're going to free agency or via the draft. They want to bring someone else in there. They're not trusting, it sounds like, Christian Kirk, who could be on the chopping block, could be getting cut. Evan Ingram, he'll come up in the tight end conversation. He had a down year last year. Some uncertainty what could happen there. I think the value that we're getting at his ADP is really solid right now to start the month of March, because I think once we get a clearer idea of what this offense looks like, he is definitely a climber. The ADP, at 18, I think is pretty fair. When you're seeing his ceiling at 8, a 13 finish the year prior to the downfall. I'm curious what you think about, Cohen coming over, and if this is like a massive, positive effect for Lawrence, or is this, going to be just more like a bridge year? Like, we're going to give him a shot and we're just going to maybe draft somebody and give, maybe Trevor a really short leash, because we're also seeing that this quarterback class is getting a little bit deeper as well. Combine, they showed off some talent, and you're going to have a lot of day 2, day 3 guys available, if you want to put somebody in the position to potentially take over, Lawrence to end this season, or really compete to start next year.
I mean, I think what Liam Cohen did for Baker, he can do for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence and Baker, different attributes, but still skill level wise, I would say they're pretty comparable.
Mhm.
I think the thing that I really like for Trevor Lawrence is this year he only had 11 touchdown passes last year. Again, in 10 games, but I think that we're going to see that get a nice uptick. Brian
Mhm.
Thomas, obviously, more implemented now into the offense, and knows obviously the NFL speed. He performed very well last year, even with without Trevor Lawrence. So
Mhm.
insert Lawrence back in. Lawrence definitely the best quarterback that the Jags have. I think that Liam Cohen will open up that playbook for him a little bit, and I think that they are going to connect pretty well together. So I like it for Lawrence as well. Definitely I can see a bounce back for Lawrence, and I do again think Cohen will make it quarterback friendly here for Lawrence to complete passes, especially down in the red zone. Like I think Lawrence did well with Evan Ingram in the red zone. Outside of
Mhm.
that, we never really saw him like truly have a really nice connection with somebody down there, I think insert Brian Thomas into that role now for him so he can have Evan Ingram and Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm looking for an uptick in Trevor Lawrence's touchdown passes. If I had to set the line, Bruni, for you for an over-under, 19 and a half passing touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence this year.
I would say the over.
Yeah, I mean,
On a
would
healthy,
I. Like,
on a healthy season, I think that's a really low number.
I think his number was like 26 and a half last year. That was obviously not good line for him, that went way under, but again, not enough games played there. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think it's going to be a nice bounce back for him. I think it'll take a little bit. And you asked me about the leash. I don't think there's really like a short leash for Trevor Lawrence. I think Liam Cohen's going to give him
I think there can be if they draft somebody.
Sure, yeah,
And
but I mean, they're not going to draft somebody high.
Well, no, I don't think they need to. Like I said, like day 2, 3, 4, if there's somebody that they like that either fell or they trade back, I think that there's going to be, some potential shift at that position this year. And the depth of the position, they just love to throw rookies onto the field now. They throw them out there like hotcakes. So there's really no like, I don't know, caution with that anymore, right? So I think there's some situations around the league where if we don't have a guy, we're just gonna, like the Titans, for example. I have no idea what's gonna happen there. They could sign somebody, they could draft somebody. We know that Rudolph and Levis aren't the answer. You know what I mean? But one of them will probably still be there this year.
Yeah, no, good value for Lawrence right now.
I do think it climbs. I think as the situation gets a little bit more certain in Jacksonville, you're going to have a little bit more confidence to take him over some of the impending rookies and other rising ADP at the position. My next quarterback up is Tua Tagovailoa, coming off the board, QB 20, ADP 136, round 12 ADP. Last year, he finished as QB 22 through 11 games played, 17 fantasy points per game, actually a click higher than his QB9 year finish in 2023, where he played a full 17 games, 16.7 fantasy points per game, just a hair short of the QB 22 finish in this past season, 11 games. And then QB 15 in 2022, 13 games played, 18 fantasy points per game there. What version of Tua Tagovailoa are we going to get this year, Andrew? Are we going to surge back? I feel like we've kind of talked about this a little bit. McDaniel's going to need to overcorrect to this offense. In that overcorrection, does it, overcompensate the passing game? Tua, Tyreek, if he's still there, Waddle, etc.
Yeah, and Waddle's a nice bounce back. I don't have him, on my thing, but Waddle a nice bounce back candidate too.
Tyreek Hill will be probably a nice bounce back candidate.
Yeah, if Tyreek's there, so if they run the same offense back, I think we get a middling of last year and 2023 for Tua. So last year 188 total points, 19 touchdowns. 2 years ago, 29 touchdowns, 284. I think we see him land somewhere smack dab in the middle of that. So probably in like the 24 touchdown, maybe 230, 220 points. Which again, like where you're drafting him, he's going to have some nice spike weeks. I think that's the nice thing for Tua is at any given time, those wide receivers can take him to the house. So for him to have spike weeks, which is what you're looking for in guys you're drafting at quarterback 20, I think it's a good pick as far as that's concerned. Like I'd much rather have Tua over Michael Penix. I'd much rather have Tua over Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy, any of those guys behind him. I would say I'd still rather have Stroud and Lawrence over Tua. Lawrence and Tua are close for me, but I'd probably still have Stroud and Lawrence over him. But like Drake May is going at quarterback 15. I think Tua has more spike weeks than Drake May does. Right?
That's
like
pretty high. Well,
yeah.
I think that Drake May is really getting pushed up the board because of the rushing upside. And that's really what's lending the most favor to his ADP right now is everyone's like, oh, well, he's going to have Vrabel. He's going to have a pass-friendly, run-friendly offense with McDaniels. We got to pay up for him. And I think that right now he's being paid up at his ceiling. I think that once some of these rookies get drafted, especially the top guys, we might see a little bit of an adjustment and see him fall down the board a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, next up we have running backs. Who do you have for running back?
Running back for me is a man who finished as running back 40 this year,
Mhm.
Jalen Warren.
Okay.
He has that restricted free agent tender on him right now. Looks like he's probably going to remain with Pittsburgh. I imagine they put that second round tender on him. So that'll keep him with Pittsburgh at least through this year. As far as Najee is concerned, though, we don't know what's going to happen with Najee. Is he going to be on the team? Is he
Mhm.
moving to a new team? My money is he's probably moving to a new team. So if Jalen Warren ends up being the lead back, we know he can catch the ball, right? That's what he's been doing. And if he's now the lead dog, with that, all the volume he'll get as the lead guy and the still catching down stuff, that's very valuable. He's currently going at ADP 86, which is running back 27. He's an absolute steal right there if he becomes the lead back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do think that if Najee leaves, they do bring somebody in, whether that's free agency or draft. Probably draft if I had to guess.
Mhm.
But I mean, I really like what Jalen Warren has to offer for the Steelers as the lead back. So I mean, and again, like this is all just hearsay. We don't know if he's actually going to be the lead back, but I don't think he has to be the lead back. Where he's currently being drafted, and I mean, he's currently being drafted as RB 27. Would you rather have Jalen Warren or Aaron Jones right now?
Aaron Jones, he was still very, very good last year. I know the age factor is there, but the amount of touches that he had and his efficiency on a per touch basis, I would still go Aaron Jones there. I still think that he's going to be a valuable weapon, especially at his ADP. It's discounted specifically because of his age.
Yeah, see, like I'd rather go Jalen Warren there.
Yeah, that's
Isaiah Pacheco or Warren.
Jalen Warren for sure. See, the big issue here is that we don't know what the backfield is going to be, and we're most likely going to get another discount once we do, whether it's Najee. I don't think you see a big leap, backwards in Warren's ADP if that does happen. I think that when Najee walks and they do draft somebody, and I think they would draft somebody with some name basis, like Jamie's in the chat saying, "What about Cam Scadabo?" I don't think that hurts Jalen Warren's ADP, but I think like an Omari and Hampton that would hurt his ADP. Maybe an Ollie Gordon. I don't know. He's a pretty physical back. The guys that could steal touchdown upside. The guys that you could easily see being like a threat 5 yards and in coming out of the draft. I think that, yeah, you get some discounted ADP out of Warren at that point. And I think that Najee, he was actually used as a passing weapon, pretty consistently. I think he had like 35 plus catches last year. And that's just not something that he's always been known for. He's a guy that can get you 4 or 5 catches a game. It's just not how they used him, right? So I think that he is interesting. I want him to maybe go to the Bears. They've talked him up a little bit. They've talked up Nick Chubb. I'm liking what I'm hearing, just knowing that they're kind of looking at some of these guys. But I feel like he's probably going to go back to the Steelers. I don't think he's ever missed a start for the Steelers. That's a very Steeler City type of culture thing, being a running back
He
and never
did
missed a
not
start in
play
his
in 2
career.
games last year.
Damn, it was over.
But I mean, like last year, like when I look at his finishes, he only had 3 weeks above 10 points. Some of those weeks though came where they used him more than they used Najee. And that's what
Mhm.
I'm looking at is if Najee's gone and he's the guy, like he's probably going to be pretty decent. And you're getting him at such a nice value right now. I'm willing to take the shot on him at RB 27. And if he's the lead guy, I expect him to definitely finish as an RB2, probably to
Do you
the top end of that.
do you think he could be like this year's Chase Brown?
Could be. I think that that's a pretty good comparison as far as situational based and what they could do. Now, I don't think the Steelers' offense is as high powered as the Bengals was,
I would
but
think that you would need Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback to make that happen because Chase Brown benefited so much from the passing game. You're going to need a slinger. And that's really the only, I think, quarterback, at least in free agency, that fits that. And I don't think that, coming out of this rookie class, that's not what you want in year one is one of these rookies throwing the ball 40, 45 plus times. Joe Burrow's not in this draft. So I don't
Yeah,
think that's the case.
I just can't see Jalen Warren finishing as RB 40 again. Like I think it's going to be definitely higher than
Mhm.
that, somewhere in the 20s for sure. But I mean, again, you're getting him an RB 27. He can probably get you again as a lead back, get you some nice spike weeks, and that's what you're looking for when you're drafting these guys. Anywhere past RB2 status. So Jalen Warren, again, going down some of these guys, like I'd rather have him over Travis Etienne. Rather have him over,
Good segue.
Ramondre Stevenson. Rather have him over DeAndre Swift.
Mhm.
So again, just a nice value for him. I think you're drafting him at a pretty good spot right now.
Good segue there because I have Travis Etienne next up. Between the two, you have a clear idea of the Jacksonville backfield. You still don't for the Steelers, and that would be my only pushback there to ever say to take
Do we
Etienne
though?
over
Because
them.
Tank Bigsby is probably going to be, used a little bit more
It'll.
than.
I do think it's going to be a two-back backfield. I don't think that either Etienne or Bigsby will be the lead guy, but we've talked about this before. Etienne's coming off the board, RB 31, ADP 102, round 9. That's actually climbed since the start of the big board. He was at a much better value, but last year he finished as running back 36. The year prior, running back 3. In 2022, he finished his rookie season, or actually, I think that was his sophomore. I think it was hurt his rookie season. He was RB 17. Not bad, really. I think that we get back to something closer to year one, probably a little bit higher, maybe like RB 20 to 24, but still
If
outplaying this ranking and this ADP for certain. And I think that makes him a value. And I think that we could see his touchdowns go back up. He had 11 rushing touchdowns 2 years ago, only 2 rushing touchdowns in 2024. I could easily see him getting another 4, 5, or 6 rushing touchdowns with just the offense being better. But yeah, I do believe it's going to be a two-back system. I think it's going to be what you've seen out of teams like Detroit, with Montgomery and Gibbs. We've seen, the 49ers really weld things together with, Jordan Mason and Isaac Orendo and, the next man up type of thing. I think in this offense, they're really going to utilize the multi-back sets and,
if
keep
that's the
guys.
case, if that's the case, then how comes you just don't want to draft Tanks Bigsby? Let's see, he's going currently a 122 RB 38, so that's
I
20
do.
spots
I
back.
think that Tank is a good value. He broke out last year. He's not bouncing back. So to
Well,
the
right,
discussion,
right.
like I think that both are a good value. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of like Tank now more because the value kind of flipped. Like to start the ADP off for the big board, they were a lot closer together and ETN was farther down. But I think the public is in a similar mindset as me, is like, hey, this is pretty cheap. Like, RB 40 or more for ETN, when he was a top 5 RB 2 seasons ago, maybe it's a little bit too much in our favor. Maybe that's a little too fair for the drafters. Folks that were waiting on running back went 0 RB, to really lead off this competition. You were able to put ETN as like your 5th running back in a lot of builds when he was at like whatever 40, 44 for his ranking for running back. So I do think that he's climbing. I don't think we get much of an adjustment. I think he probably continues to get more expensive. I would assume that the things that will be coming out of, Jags camp and their front office are going to be nice things about Travis Etienne this year. I'm going to assume. If he can't use him, then they're going to want to trade him. There's not going to be any reason to say anything bad about him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree on that aspect.
And he goes pole to pole with Trevor Lawrence, like they do sleepovers and stuff. They're boys. If the offense get better, those tides rise.
I think the thing for me with ETN is there's just guys that go around him I like better. Like I'd rather take Zach Charbonnet. Depending on what Washington does, Brian Robinson goes later. I'll take those guys. I mean,
yeah, good offense for Brian Robinson. Zach Charbonnet, when given the opportunity, looked really, really good. But they weren't using Zach Charbonnet on his own as his own like counterbalance to Kenneth Walker. He was just, when he was able to get the start, he was rock solid. I think Ken Walker is a roadblock to Zach Charbonnet really breaking out. I like him because when the opportunity's there, you've seen like he'll produce. So, and Kenneth Walker, not the billboard for, reliable, sustainable health. So,
yeah.
Interesting scenario there.
You got another guy?
No, that is my running backs and receivers and quarterbacks. Who is your tight end?
So tight end for me is Mr. Jake Ferguson. Finished
Mhm.
as tight end 28 last year, albeit he was hurt. Current ADP of 144, which is tight end 17. He was hurt 4 games, so didn't play 4 games. Played without Dak. At the end of the season there, Cowboys were just an absolute mess on offense outside of CD Lamb. He had no touchdowns. That is not his normal, right? We saw him, be much better in previous seasons. And let me just go to him here so I can tell you a little bit. Yeah. So the year prior, he had 102 targets, 71 catches, 770 or 761 yards, 5
Mhm.
touchdowns. Right, like that's where we saw him be bread and butter. Was for the Cowboys in the red zone. I think that we're going to get back to seeing them use him more in the red zone, albeit if he stays healthy. And he did do some nice work with the ball in his hands. I mean, 71 receptions for 761 yards. That's pretty nice. Yards per catch there. Last year, 86 targets, 59 receptions, 494 yards. He went down with the yards per catch there, as well as no touchdowns.
Cooper
Um,
Rush.
just just a nice, yeah, exactly. Cooper Rush, and Cooper Rush did not favor throwing it to Jake Ferguson as Dak does. Dak and Jake, have a pretty nice, companionship as you want to call it out there on the field.
Mhm.
Obviously, Ferguson's never going to overtake CeeDee Lamb on any of that, on anything on the field. But where he's going right now, tight end 16. Like I'd much rather have Ferguson over Loveland. I'll take him over Kyle Pitts. I'll take him over Kate Otten. Pat Fryermuth, like just a lot of those guys
Pat,
I
I think
like.
you change your tune about Pat Fryermuth if they get a quarterback.
I mean, this is true. Depending on who it is, that could flip flop. But as of right now, as it sits, like I'd take Ferguson over all those guys. Take him
Mhm.
over Hunter Henry. I just
Kate
I
Otten is
like.
just interesting to me because of how much the offense in Tampa prioritizes the pass and the age of, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin also coming back from injury. I do see McMillan and Kate Otten have, you know, some pretty good upside for like spike weeks.
uh Sure, depending what happens with Godwin there. But like
But I
Otten
agree
is.
with you. Like Ferguson, like, on the whole, he should have a better baseline week to week. I guess my only other pushback is, some of those other guys I do actually like, and just the fact that they probably do add an elite receiver or
So
somebody at the position.
yeah, Jake Ferguson has scored more touchdowns in a single season than Kate Otten ever has.
Yeah,
What I'm
that's
looking
okay.
for a tight end for a
Mhm,
bounce back is a guy going late that I think can score touchdowns. I mean,
mhm,
outside of the top, what maybe 7 tight ends or so. Like, all we're really looking for is guys that can score touchdowns because a lot of these guys at the end of these drafts aren't
mhm.
guys that are going to go get you 60, 70, 80 yards, right? And I don't think Ferguson's that guy on a lot of weeks either, but he is a guy that is going to get some red zone looks. I think he was targeted 2 years ago, was targeted like third most in the NFL for tight ends in the red zone
Mhm.
so again, like for me, the bounce back is, I think his bounce back is touchdowns. And a lot of these guys down here, I just don't see the same upside as far as target potential in the red zone. And it's just, I mean, again, tight end 17, I could see him definitely finishing, back end tight end 1 somewhere in like the 11 to, 13 range. Like, I really
Mhm.
think that's what we're looking for Jake Ferguson.
Also in that area, Evan Ingram, tight end 16. I have here at ADP 138 coming off the board round 12. Finished as tight end 34 last year after finishing as tight end 2 in 2023. Very similar to Travis Etienne. We have a full slew here of Jaguar players looking to rebound, looking for Liam Cohen to come in with all the cheat codes and all the perfect play calling to get them back on track, right? Also, Christian Kirk, he was down in the dumps, potential candidate for a bounce back. Not on our list tonight, but someone that, if you're in on, if this offense is moving forward or moving on, you predict Kirk will be elsewhere. He might be of value as well. To have Evan Ingram, finished as tight end 2, like I said, in 23, tight end 6 in 2022. So things were really good in Jacksonville until last year. Where are you at with him? He was someone that you and I were both very, very high on last year. It did not work out. How are you adjusting your exposure to him in 25?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to be, in favor of Evan Ingram. There's guys around him that I like, but I like the situation for him because right now he's probably going to be, the second on the team in targets. I mean, he had
Mhm.
143 2 years ago. Behind Brian Thomas, like they're probably going to get rid of Kirk. They don't really have anybody like of note per se.
Oh,
Now,
they
look,
love Parker Washington too much. It's
oh,
annoying.
sure, right, yeah, but
It's
like
annoying.
again, like of
Is
note, right?
Laquan Treadwell gonna get another contract down there?
Okay, stop it. I, so,
Hey, the
so
pride of Creed, Illinois, stand up. Hey, you just watch your mouth, all right? Don't be
they'll
disrespecting Laquan Treadwell.
they'll probably add somebody. But Evan Ingram, again, like he has shown that he can get targets in this offense. Now, again, like what are they going to do with Liam Cohen? I don't know. But I mean, again, you're not drafting Evan Ingram as tight end 7. You're drafting him as tight end, whatever you said, 15, 16.
17, yeah.
Fine
Oh, I'm
by
sorry,
me.
16. My
Yeah,
bad.
say
Dog.
17 Ferguson. But yeah, fine by me. I mean, a guy that can earn targets and has shown that, he has done well with those targets on 114 catches 2 years ago. He had 4 touchdowns. And still, like, that's fine for a
Mhm.
guy that you're drafting, outside of the top 12 guys. So yeah, I'm fine with Evan Ingram here. Like, I like Dalton Kincaid, but as much as I like Kincaid, I think Ingram will outproduce him. So
Right.
I mean, I'm there with you on Evan Ingram having that bounce back.
I mean, Kincaid he could outproduce Evan Ingram.
Could.
He's done nothing on the field to show otherwise that he would. But sure, yeah, he plays in a good offense. So, hey, it could happen. Like the old McDonald's commercial. Hey, it could happen. Um, I would buy him at his ADP. This is another situation similar to Cooper Cup, where I'm not looking to start Evan Ingram as like my top tight end. I think getting him built in to your second or your third tight end slot, it's going to look and feel really good at the end of the drafts because you have some high target, high potential volume upside in your second tight end. I would love pairing him up with, one of the elite guys like a Bowers or McBride, something that you may not have been able to do in years past.
Yeah, and when I look at these tight ends, I think that it's important to point out to everybody that if you are one of those guys that like to wait on tight ends, there are definitely guys from like 120 on in ADP that you can put together a nice 3 tight end build. Like a Goddard goes at 120. You could put like Goddard, Ingram, and Ferguson all together. Now you'd probably have to take them like in a row. But if
Mhm.
you really just want to do that, like that's a nice room to go into the season with. Plenty of guys down here, and again, like I'm obviously big on Ertz too, but Ertz down the board. So a lot of guys down here that can give you some production on a weekly basis, and a couple of these guys have spike week potential as well. So if you are, a drafter that likes to wait on tight end, so far right now, pretty nice options there after about ADP 120.
I agree with you. Definitely like some of that back end value. Last one up here, we are going to switch over to the man on the thumbnail, Travis Kelsey. Finished as tight end 6 last year. His lowest finish since 20. What is that? They even have a date on there? 2015. Since 2015. In 2015, he was tight end 7. In 2014, he was tight end 8. But from 16 to 23, he was either 1, 2, or 3.
You know what's crazy is
Insane.
2023, he scored 172.9 fantasy points. Last year, 146.9. So really, he didn't like not score that many compared to
Yeah,
2020.
but he was left on a milk carton for a good portion of the
Oh,
season.
sure. Sure.
Like, if you
Yeah.
look at his game log, that production is really held up within, like, a small series of games. He left everyone wanting per his ADP last year, and that begs the question, is he now worth the discount? Will he regress more? Can he come back? Yeah, he went down 30 points in a year. Given his elite status, that may not sound bad, but does he go down another 30? Does he go down another 50? Does he go back up between the two? Does he somehow reform to tight end 1, 2, or 3? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if you're tight end 6, you didn't have a bad year. But if you're Travis Kelsey, you did because you haven't done it in a decade.
I think the thing you like for Kelsey is target potential. And this was still last year. I mean, obviously they lost, Rice, but they still slung it around to Worthy and some of those other guys. He had 133 targets last year. That is more than 2023, where he had 121. So, and again, like, so 22, 152, 21, 134, 20, 145. So he's hasn't went below 121 targets in 5 straight years. I still think we see him go above 100, somewhere in that 115 to probably 135 range. So you're still getting nice target potential. And it's Mahomes' guy, right? Like, he loves Travis Kelce. So now that we know that he's coming back, I still think it's a decent value for him. Have we ever been able to draft Kelce at tight end 10? Like,
Oh, I drafted him at like tight end 18 that one week. Remember?
yes, which looks good now. But that was before we knew that he was actually coming back, so I understood why he was falling there. But yeah, I mean,
40
now,
picks.
yeah, I mean, and now that we know that he's coming back, like, fine, go ahead, shoot from the hip at tight end 10.
Tight end 10 coming off the board round 9 or 10. I mean, it's hard to say no, but I will note he was healthy all of last year, and he gained 2 less yards per reception, a career low 8.5 yards per reception. Yeah, it's at the top of the position, but it's a completely different, scope of tight end that he was. He was a low A dot type of just, yeah, I'll get a completion. Yeah, I'll just get a completion. He wasn't even touchdown dependent. He only had 3 receiving touchdowns. So yeah, that volume is great, but you're getting less efficiency potentially. And in another year, another aged year for him, I definitely want to get some value. I definitely don't want to overpay. I definitely want to kind of be even with the market and get him at ADP and there or after.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not drafting him before his ADP, but at ADP, he's fine now that we know he's coming back.
I would still expect maybe some lower totals. Like, I could see the yards going up maybe, but the catches going down, and probably the touchdowns staying the same. That's under the assumption that they're going to add somebody. Like, again, they also, like the Dolphins, need to overcorrect. They got completely hosed in the Super Bowl. They cannot allow something like that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, literally the worst game of Patrick Mahomes' career was a Super Bowl game. They are going to completely overcorrect, overreact, draft rookies, bring in free agents probably. I think we're seeing a big change to the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs in 25.
Yeah, and Kelce still had 7 games over 10 fantasy points. What do you consider a spike week for a tight end, points wise?
15, because tight ends, while their target exposure isn't high typically, their red zone targets are. So 2 touchdowns is a starting base for like a spike tight end week. So that's 12 points right there. So 15, like, that's, I think pretty fair. Only 3 points out of yards and catches.
I'm just trying to see how many he had over 15. He had week 8, 20, week 9, 15, week 10, 16.4, and then week 17, 18.4. So he still had four
Week
weeks
17,
of 15
look
more.
at Kelce. Look at him.
So take that for a grain of salt.
Salt's nice. I like it. Never going to stop putting it in my
Good for the
food.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
are we doing this draft, or what's happening here?
Man, we did not get to our limit. We are halfway there. We are at 10.
Yeah, I'm still gonna do it if you want, but if not, I understand.
Man, what are you gonna reward the kids for not listening?
It's fine. It's fine. Maybe next time, guys. Maybe next time. I tried.
Yeah,
I tried.
Oh man, I had a late night last night, so it doesn't hurt me to not do one. But come back Wednesday night for the live draft. Bruni, 9:30 Wednesday night. Yes, right. As always.
9:30 Wednesday night. Appreciate everybody for watching this evening, following along. Be sure to smash the like button on the way out if you already haven't, and help us march on towards to 500 subs and further to our 1,000 follower goal. Appreciate you. Take care. Be well. Be good. If you can't be good, be